So we got some photos of the hotel room where Bob Saget died. And I think it does give people a look into what may have happened here, because there are a lot of people who just do not understand how somebody could walk in a hotel room, hit their head on a headboard, and die.
They don't understand it, Harvey, and a lot of people still question it if that is what really happened. And I think that's part of the reason police have released these photos showing the inside of the room and exactly where they believe Bob Saget hit his head as he was getting into bed. So that headboard is really the key.
This is the headboard. So remember, when Bob Saget was discovered, when his body was discovered, there was no blood anywhere that was visible. And, you know, that's why, you know, when we broke this story, the authorities told us they suspected it was a heart attack because they saw no injury. When the coroner did an autopsy, they found that he had a bruise in the back of his head, and then discovered in the autopsy that he died from a brain bleed, presumably hitting his head on something in the room. Now, we know it happened in the room, by the way. We can isolate that because we showed you the picture of the valet who took a picture with Bob when he showed up to the hotel, and Bob was fine. The valet said he
had no injuries.
Yeah, no injuries. He wasn't dizzy.
Walked fine to his room.
Walked all the way to his room. The surveillance video shows him going into the room. He was fine. And then hours later, security came in when he wasn't answering his phone, and they found him dead.
Now, the fact that he didn't have any injury, the skin wasn't broken, there was no, as you said, no external bleeding. They looked at every surface in this room, and that's why they've released these photos now to show you what they saw. And
so let's go back to the headboard. So let's isolate this.
The reason they think it's the headboard is because the skin wasn't broken. They suspect that he hit his head on something that was obviously hard, because it had to be hard enough to cause this brain bleed.
Covered by something soft.
But covered by something soft, so the skin wasn't broken. And that's why they think this headboard is the prime suspect.
Because there's wood behind the headboard. I mean, the tufting there is attached to a wooden headboard. And they said, especially on the edge of the headboard, that he could have hit his head there, and that could have done the damage.
Right.
Remember, he was found in bed. He had the covers pulled over him, so it looked like he was either sleeping or trying to sleep when this happened. There's a complication here. There's also a picture that the police released of the bathroom in the hotel room. And in the bathroom, you see that there's a towel that's out. You see some toiletries that are out as well. And so we started thinking, we wondered if it's possible that maybe he took a shower and fell on the bath mat, because that would also be a soft surface covering a hard surface. We contacted authorities. They said that is not part of their theory. And so it goes right back to the headboard. They acknowledge they're never going to know for sure.
Right.
Because he was the only one in the room.
I have to tell you, Harvey, from a just logical perspective, looking at these photos, I hear what the police are saying. They're the ones that investigated. We have to defer to them to some point, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that a tufted, padded headboard like that, you know, no matter how hard you hit it, could cause the kind of damage that could end up in a fatality. According to all we've heard, he was perfectly healthy in every other respect, but hit his head so hard it caused a subcutaneous bleed. And that led to his death. And seeing a padded headboard like that, just applying what we know about logic and common sense, it just doesn't add up. I can't rule it out. Nobody can. The police, it's their working theory, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, you know, and again, we're looking at the middle of the headboard over the bed. I think what they were saying is that it may have been one of the edges where...
No, well, yeah.
But set in place a series of circumstances that somebody hits the back of their head on the corner of a headboard. It just doesn't.
It is. You're right, Jason. It's totally bizarre.
It depends on where. Look, I mean, I'm just going to theorize here. It was way past 2 in the morning when he finally got into bed, and so he had just performed for a couple of hours. He drove 2 hours. He must have been exhausted.
He's exhausted, and I think he misjudged.
Right? Have you ever gotten into bed and just like, oh, and you lean back?
And you think that you have more room than you do, and suddenly you've smacked your head. I mean,
you guys have honestly hit your head on a headboard so hard it caused you to black out.
Well, obviously, I didn't black out.
You said black out. You said black out. There was no.
Well, I mean, it's that kind of impact that caused such impact. Forget about the fatality. That it caused a serious injury. I've never done it. I don't know anybody it's happened to.
It doesn't cause blackout. We talked to some of the people involved in this, and they said, look, it depends. If you hit your head in a certain way, that you could get a fatal brain bleed. What they also told us is, you know, when you hit your head and you know, it really hurts like hell and you kind of get over it, a lot of times you can have a small brain bleed from that too. That, you know, when
that
you
isn't fatal.
That isn't fatal.
Right.
And most of the time it isn't. And if you hit it just right or wrong, that can happen.
Yeah, I could see, you know, what kind of it's just weird. It looks like a freak accident. None of it makes sense for whatever reason. I just personally don't believe it. But he was a good man, and it just sucks that he had to go out like that.
Yeah, especially, you know, at his age.
That we do know.